Daniel again. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for watching my videos. I'm sure very few people watch them, but it really is nice to be able to talk about these things that I think about. Anyway, so my last video was kind of a lot of ranting and raving about things that I saw that's helped me to start waking up. But it doesn't really touch very much on the actual reasons why I find the Jehovah's Witnesses to be a cult that should be very careful with. So I was thinking it would be prudent to follow that video up with my next video, which is this one, which will go over each following video will be one point why I find that the organization is something I don't want to have anything to do with. So different things that I find in it. And so this is pretty much based off of my letter that I wrote that I haven't actually turned in. Now, of course, it's a 400-page document, but it actually is only 3 pages that I wrote. It's actually just 3 first pages of this is going over the things that I find to be wrong with the organization. And I thought it very prudent to, rather than just write down, I don't like all these different things, to put proof in here so that the elders and whoever ends up seeing it will actually see these things. And it's possible that somebody else sees the truth in what I'm saying. But anyway, so starting out, I thought it really nice to start with one of the biggest shockers for me, the UN. Now, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, obviously you're a Jehovah's Witness, you probably aren't watching this video, but at some point in time, you might be a Jehovah's Witness watching this video. So if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you are watching this video, it's very probable that you don't know anything about the United Nations and the Jehovah's Witnesses. Because as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you don't watch anything that is against Jehovah's Witnesses. You're not going to go to any apostate websites. Anybody starts talking bad about Jehovah's Witnesses, you're, whoa, I gotta back up. I don't want to listen to this. I gotta close my ears, because that would be bad to hear the truth. Because everything's from Satan. Everything's from Satan. You hear somebody talking about aliens, you're like, well, that's Satan who brings his demons down to do stuff. And you talk to people about Jesus, miracles and different things that have happened to people. That's demons. Demons are doing miracles. So everything is Satan and demons if it doesn't have perfect concordance with what the governing body says. So I thought it really nice to talk about the UN. The UN in this world is a great organization. I mean, every organization is full of corruption, full of problems, but as the purpose of the United Nations, it's there to help with our rights and our liberties, and wars and famine and horrible things that are happening in other countries, that in the U.S. and in other probably the U.S. mostly, because we don't really pay attention. I mean, we don't know very much about the world, even though we think we do. We don't even realize how horrible it is in some countries, and the UN is there to support that. But according to Jehovah's Witnesses, that's not true. According to Jehovah's Witnesses, the UN is satanic because it is the beast of Revelation on which the harlot rides. Okay, the harlot being all false religion, any and every religion or religious group or anything to do with a deity that is not Jehovah's Witnesses. So that is the harlot. And then on top of the harlot rides on the 7-headed, 10-horned beast, which is the United Nations, because the United Nations is a blasphemous group that is there to create peace and security in this satanic world. So it's Satan's way of giving people hope for the world. And so they are the beast. So for us as Jehovah's Witnesses, well, not for me anymore, but anyways, for Jehovah's Witnesses, we would want to stay 100% away from false religion. We would want to stay 100% away, not only from just going to a church or something, but you have to stay away from anything and everything that has the touch of false religion. Birthdays, Christmas, end of year celebrations that might have a Christmas tree in the building while you're there, anything and everything that could possibly be construed as some sort of false worship you have to stay 100% away from. You have to run from that kind of stuff. The United Nations, we would not want to have anything to do with the United Nations. We wouldn't want to volunteer for them or help them or anything like that, because that is Satan's organization for peace and security in this world. So it's a shocker for a Jehovah's Witness to hear that the Jehovah's Witnesses were members of the United Nations for nearly 10 years. I didn't know this, and this started in 1992. They applied in 1991, became members in 1992, and stopped their membership in 2001 abruptly. But 16 years later, I didn't know about this. So that was a big shocker for me. And if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this video, it might be a shocker for you too. So as a Jehovah's Witness, if you live on a street with a bunch of gangs, and it's a horrible street, it's difficult, maybe you've got kids and you see your kids kind of getting into drugs and getting into gang activity, and their friends are really shady, and you're like, I got to get my kids out of this, but I can't leave. And you see a YMCA in your neighborhood very close by, it's on the way to school, it's perfect. If you were to enroll your kids in the YMCA to protect them from the dangers of this world and help them build a career in their future, you would be officially disassociating yourself from Jehovah's Witnesses. Seems kind of crazy, right? But it's Young Men's Christian Association. So Jehovah's Witnesses try to stay as far away from Christians as possible. They don't want anything to do with Christians. Anything to do with any religion that's not Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah is the only Savior for this world. Jesus just simply died. I know that they say so much Jesus is the Savior and Jesus did so many things, but Jesus is not Jehovah, according to Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah is the only name that's important, even though the Bible specifically says so many times that Jesus is the only name for saviors, but to be saved in. But another point. So it would be a disassociating move to join the United Nations to save your kids. I think it was in Malawi in Africa. There were issues where Jehovah's Witnesses were being massacred because they would not get a card, a political card, and it's difficult to understand. I don't know very much about it, and I wouldn't want to go into too much detail on it. But from what I understand, it's a political card from the only political faction in the country, so it's pretty much just an ID card. I mean, it wouldn't be very much different. Because there's no one else to support. So if you support the one because there is no other, then where's the problem? But to get that card, all they do is get a card and they would be saved. But no, Jehovah's Witnesses told them, you don't get to get the card. And so many Jehovah's Witnesses were massacred and killed and tortured and whatnot, all because of that card. And this happens all over the world. But there's obviously different little issues here and there where certain things are allowed and certain things are not, and it's just hypocritical beyond belief. But anyways, point being, Jehovah's Witnesses are forced to stay out of everything political, everything religious, and anything that has anything to do with the UN. But the organization can be a member of the United Nations for 10 years. Now, everything that I'm going to bring up, I actually found on jwfacts.com, which I will make sure I put in the description there for you, because JWFacts is an amazing website. If you are doubting anything Jehovah's Witnesses, that is the place to go. I know it is an apostate website, so if you're Jehovah's Witness, it's going to be difficult to go there. But I will also, because of that, I will also put in the description down below the UN website, where you can find these letters and whatnot. So you can see them from that website, from an official governmental website. Most of these letters are going to pop up. Not all of them will be there, of course. The ones that I bring up that have to do with actual Jehovah's Witnesses letters, they're not going to be there. But anyways, so starting out, let's see the letter here. So this is a letter from the United Nations. This will have a link down below. This letter talks about Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower and Bible Tract Society of New York being an NGO. So recently, the NGO section has been receiving numerous inquiries regarding the association of Watchtower Bible Tract Society of New York with the Department of Public Information. The Organization of Jehovah's Witnesses applied for association with the DPI in 1991 and was granted association in 1992. This is important right here. By accepting association with DPI, the organization agreed to meet criteria for association, including support and respect of the principles of the Charter of the United Nations and commitment and means to conduct effective information programs with its constituents and to a broader audience about its activities, or the UN activities. So this is important because right here it says that they became UN members in 1991 or 1992. They applied in 1991. And by doing so, they agreed to support the charter and publish propaganda or positive information about the United Nations to everyone in the world. Now, that's pretty bad because Jehovah's Witnesses throughout history have bagged on the United Nations, the League of Nations, for being the beast of Revelation. They're always talking about how it's the beast of Revelation. It's a horrible thing. It's the thing that's going to bring the end of this system of things. It's the thing that's going to start Great Tribulation. It is part of Satan's world, a fundamental part of Satan's world. And they talk bad about all the other religions, like the Catholic Church, who are members of the United Nations or have support from the United Nations. So pretty hypocritical if they were in there for 10 years. Now, here's an important point. They got found out in 2001. So they were members. The continuation of this letter says that in October 2001, the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of New York requested termination of its association with DPI. Following the request, the DPI has made a decision to disassociate with the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of New York as of 9 October 2001. Now, it's interesting. October 9th, 2001. That's an interesting date because on the 8th of October 2001, The Guardian, a UK newspaper, found out about these guys. Well, they published an article about how the Watchtower Bible Tract Society was members of the United Nations, how hypocritical it was that they're constantly talking bad about them, but here they are members and promoting the United Nations in the world. So the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, they do really well about fighting these kind of things. So they sent out letters. So first of all, I'd like to show you a letter. This is a letter to The Guardian. So it's kind of small. Again, you can find this on Watchtower or jwfacts.com. But this is a letter from the Watchtower organization. Pretty much goes through saying, Stephen, you guys published something that contains a number of factual errors. It says in 1981, one of our legal corporations registered with the United Nations as an NGO, non-governmental organization, for the sole purpose of getting access to the extensive library of the United Nations. This enabled a writer who received the identification card to enter the library for research purposes and to obtain information that has been used in writing articles in our journals about the United Nations. There was nothing secret about it. That's an important thing. So first of all, they did it only to get a library card, and there was nothing secret about it. They did nothing else. At the time of the initial application, no signature was required, which is interesting because if you're a 10-year-old boy or girl and you get baptized, you also don't have to sign anything, but if you ever decide to leave, you lose everything without a signature. Back to this guy. At the time of the initial application, no signature was required on the form. Years later, unbeknown to the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, the United Nations published criteria for association, stipulating that affiliated NGOs are required to support the goals of the United Nations. After learning the situation, our membership as NGO was withdrawn and the ID card to the writer reaffirmed. So they learned about it and canceled their membership, but that was only because Guardian told them about it, right? So they're mad about that. And then it says they never signed anything, And they never knew that they were required to do anything for the United Nations. So that's all misunderstandings, and it says false information or factual errors. There's another letter. I want to save these two. I want to go through these letters in just a second. But there's another letter that was from the organization. Now, this was a letter given to the branch facility. So every branch received this letter right here. Now, this letter specifically says this is just a World Headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. This is branch committee stuff. Because of published allegations, not true allegations, we're not agreeing to anything, by opposers. So this is not truthful. This is apostate information that you should not listen to. That we have a secret links with the United Nations. A number of branches have inquired about the matter, and we have replied. Okay, this circular is for future reference, and this replaces everything else. So continue on. This says what you should do if someone asks you as a branch overseer about it. You can say this: our purpose for registering with the Department of Public Information as a non-governmental organization in 1991 was to have access to research material available on health, ecological, and social problems at the United Nations library facilities. We had been using the library for many years prior to 1991, but in that year it became necessary to register as an NGO to have continued access. Registration papers filed with the United Nations that we have on file contain no statements that conflict with our Christian beliefs. Moreover, NGOs are informed by the United Nations that association of NGOs with the DPI does not constitute their incorporation into the United Nations system, nor does it entitle associate organizations or their staff to any kind of privileges or immunities or special status. So pretty much saying that, again, we're here just to get a library card. We didn't join anything, and we have on file, which we're not going to show you, but we have on file papers that prove that we didn't have to do anything. Now, what's important to realize here is that before 1991, or during 1991, the first portions of 1991 and before, the governing body constantly was pushing the United Nations as the beast of Revelation, satanic. Okay, the form in which Satan or God will use Satan to start the Great Tribulation. So the United Nations is that car that is going to bring the Great Tribulation. Okay, it's the beast of Revelation. But in 1981, things changed. So here are a couple of articles. Now you can look every one of these articles up. There's just a couple of articles here. You can look them all up, and you can actually look through the site that I was talking about. JW Facts actually shows like a graph of how the Watchtower uses the beast of Revelation before 1991 and how it just drops off in 1991. And from 1991 on, it shows all of these articles where everything's great. So here is 1998. It's November 22nd. You can look it up. A long job finished. This is talking about how amazing the United Nations is, the things that they're doing for human rights and helping out people, and how humanitarian the organization is. Something to be commended. Here is these two together. This is from the July 22nd, 2002. I know none of this you can read, but I just want to show it because that way you can see that I'm actually got something in my hands. And then again, you can you can find all this in Watchtower or a library or whatever you want to use. You can find these articles, and then JW Facts will have the actual graph. It's just an amazing graph. So here we're talking about growing needs of people who need stuff. So the organization, the United Nations, needs volunteers. So they're producing this, sending it out to the world, telling people to help out the United Nations because they need volunteers. Now, this is something that would never show up before or after this 10-year period because the United Nations is Satan's organization for this world, and we as Jehovah's Witnesses want nothing to do with Satan's world. But here they are talking about how the United Nations is a great organization that needs volunteers and we should help. This is a continuation of it. Again, talking about International Year of Volunteers and how this organization is so good and needs so much help. Another article here talking again about human rights. This is part of the November 22nd, 1998 article again. Should have put that together. And this is talking about human rights and how the organization is helping human rights and pushing human rights throughout the world, and how humanitarian great the organization is. So these are a couple of articles. You can find many more, but these are a couple of articles during that 10-year period that show that even though the Jehovah's Witnesses didn't realize they were supposed to support the United Nations during their time as members, they seem to do it every year. They seem to send out articles in favor of the United Nations. No longer is it the beast of Revelation. It's now a humanitarian organization that's doing a great job that we should give a thumbs up to. So that's important. But here it gets really, really kind of hairy. So here is a couple of articles that talk about Jehovah's Witnesses and their membership and what they were required to do from 1992. Again, all this can be found on JW website, jwfacts.com, and then also I'll have a link for the UN. But here it talks about the procedure. This is how you get a library card. This is what you need for a library card. So the procedure for a library pass is the following. The interested party needs to fill out an application form and supply a letter of recommendation in support of the research. If the needed material is not available in a UN depository library, the application is approved and sent to the UN Security. UN Security checks the application and, if approval is granted, instructs the pass officer to ensure a library pass for the applicant. So you just ask for one and you get one, as long as you're reputable and everything, not like an organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. But any other organization could easily get one just by showing that they need research material. The issuance of a library pass is independent of an NGO status or any other status. There has been no change in the library pass policy in general. Now it says here there's a however. Now this does not apply for 1991. It applies for 2001 because of September 11th. But it says, however, please be advised that as a consequence of September 11th, 2001 attacks, no library passes are being issued for the time being, while the security situations at the UN is being studied. So that's simply 2001, but the organization says in 1991 they were no longer able to get access to their library. So they had to join this satanic, according to them, satanic organization. And then here again, the United Nations, dear Mr. Whoever, in reply to your letter dated 19 February 2002, please be informed the following. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, Incorporated, an NGO, had been associated with the DPI since 1992 and requested to terminate its association in 2001. The request was granted on 9 October 2001. According to the website, watchtower.org, the organization is a legal organization in use by Jehovah's Witnesses. Then it says, number 2, the United Nations does not force or trick any NGO to be associated with DPI. So they didn't lie to them or tell them, oh, you can do it for all these things. No. It says right here, the next thing, very important one, the criteria for association for NGOs have not been changed since 1991. So in 1991, the same criteria that you have to promote the organization of the United Nations was the same as it is today. So that means that not only did the Organization of Jehovah's Witnesses lie, because they joined an organization that they are totally against so that they can get some sort of benefit. Now, who knows what that benefit is, but I mean, if you really think about it, if you were a member of the United Nations, don't you think you'd have access to people and organizations where you would be able to lobby with more ease, where you would be able to network with people and join groups to be able to promote your organization in a better way? I mean, it would make sense. But who knows what their real purpose was. But they hypocritically joined this organization, satanic organization that is the Beast of Revelation, where a Jehovah's Witness were to join the YMCA or go to a church to go to a funeral, one could be disassociated or disfellowshipped for such a stupid offense. And these guys, for 10 years, were members of the United Nations, who they consider to be the Beast of Revelation. And then they went and lied to everybody, all of their subjects. They told them, first of all, it was never secret. Which again, if you talk to Jehovah's Witnesses, I guarantee most of them will have no idea what you're talking about the UN and Jehovah's Witnesses. You talk about Russia, oh, they know all about what's going on in Russia. But you talk about this, or you talk about Australia, which we'll get into another video, they don't have any clue. So it's a lie that it's not secret. And then secondly, they say that they only did it to get a library card. First of all, a library card is not reason to break all of your moral codes or your reasons or your faith, your beliefs. If you believe that the organization of the United Nations is the Beast of Revelation, what right do you have to say, well, I needed a library card, so I joined the Beast of Revelation? It's okay. And, oh, you went to the YMCA? Get out, right? It's hypocritical beyond belief. Or you got a political card, so you didn't get your legs chopped off? You're disfellowshipped. These are the kind of things you say, how is it possible that that can happen in God's organization? How can someone who teaches you that the United Nations is satanic, is the Beast of Revelation, is in opposition to Jehovah God, and then turns around and joins them because of a library card? And what's worse is they're lying about that because they didn't even need a library. They didn't even need to join to get a library card. Library card was just as easy as asking for one. But the fact you had to ask for each and every research is probably where their problem is. Oh, we got to ask for that? Oh, that's too difficult. No, let's just become members. So it is something to think about. Why would you want to support an organization that has a double standard, where if they need something, it's no problem, they'll change laws, they'll change beliefs, whatever it might be, to get what they need. But if it's something that you need, like life, blood, or not to be mutilated by horrible people because you don't have a stupid piece of paper, it's difficult to support an organization that would do that. And I mean, I know that if you're listening to this and you don't know anything about, Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever, you would be like, well, who cares? It's the United Nations. I mean, who gives a crap? Well, you got to think about it like someone who right now there's a lot of stuff going on with Confederate flags, or you know what, ISIS. Let's say ISIS. It's much more polemic or much more juicy. So. Let's say that there is a war hero who has fought everything. He's just put so much into fighting ISIS. And then he comes home and he puts up an ISIS flag and paints his house in a certain way just so he can get a $50 check from the government. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's completely against. And someone who is willing to flip-flop like that on such a huge subject, for Jehovah's Witnesses, the UN is a huge subject. I mean, it's been fought ever since it started. Ever since it started as a League of Nations, it has been pushed and smashed as the Beast of Revelation. And then when it becomes necessary because they're going to get some sort of social networking gain, or some sort of foothold on lobbying or whatever it might have been that they're doing, they would drop all that and join the United Nations, and secretly join the United Nations, and then lie to everybody about it. And I gotta tell you, if someone's willing to lie to you to keep you as their members, and then they're going to tell you something stupid like in 2013 when they went off saying that we have to be ready to obey them, obey the governing body in anything they tell us, even if it sounds foolish. That's something that you really have to think twice about. Because if they tell us you've got to take this pill or you got to drink this liquid to be saved from the Great Tribulation or from this world's destruction or whatever it might be, and they're so shady as they are, Are you really going to do that? And that's something that I cannot support. I will not support an organization that is so flip-floppy, so hypocritical, and so judgmental of others while they do the same exact thing. So this was a huge problem for me. I saw this thing on the United Nations and I studied so much on it. Again, I'm going to have all this stuff in the description, and I really do ask that anyone who has any doubts on it, study it, look it up. You can look it up anywhere. You don't have to go to an apostate website. Go to the sites that I have down below, check it, look on other websites. I mean, look it up online on YouTube, whatever. You will find so much information on this. It is a huge scandal that really should be taken care of, but Watchtower just simply says, well, they don't know because they're not supposed to look on websites. So they're not gonna address it. So my next article, next video, I'd like to go through another one of the things I found. I mean, there are so many things that I was studying that it blew my mind because I had no idea. So I hope to see you that. If you want to subscribe, you can press the button right over here. And if you want to listen to my video from yesterday or from my last video, you can just press the button right here. And I really do hope to see you for my next video. Thank you much.